Hi everyone, and welcome to the 8th lesson in our A Christmas Carol GCSE study guide / revision series. If you haven't seen anything on this channel so far, what we're doing is going through all the characters, themes, quotes, model answers that you need to make sure that you're successful in your upcoming GCSEs. So if that sounds like something that will help you, then stick around. So in terms of what we've done so far in this series, as I said, this is lesson 8. We've looked at Scrooge, we've looked at the ghosts, we've looked at the Cratchits, we've looked at Fred. We've also looked at the theme of transformation, the theme of Christmas, the theme of poverty. Today, we're going to be looking at the theme of the supernatural. In the next couple of weeks, we're likely going to start looking at some model answers. We've done model paragraphs the whole way through. I think we did one model answer on, I think it was on transformation, but so we'll be doing a couple more model answers before we finish the series. So feel free to check that out. In terms of the supernatural, I thought this was kind of a cool picture. So it's kind of trippy, I don't know. But we're going to talk about, obviously, what the theme of the supernatural does within the novel. And then we'll write a model paragraph, as always, to finish up. So I've got quite a few quotes for this as well. Hopefully I'll be able to get through, most of them. But let's see how we go. So in a nutshell, supernatural, one of the major themes. Obviously, the ghosts are literally a form of the supernatural. And so the supernatural is used as a way to guide Scrooge to his transformation. And it's also seen perhaps as an intervention from God to try and help a man who's lost his way to come back to how he's meant to be. So, but there's also supernatural elements within Scrooge himself. So the first quote is actually going to be about that. So it said, "No warmth could warm him, no wintry weather chill him." So the fact that Scrooge is described in this fairly supernatural way, the idea that he's so unaffected by the weather, suggests that there is something a bit crazy about Scrooge, really. So no warmth could warm him and no wintry weather could chill him. That makes him seem quite supernatural, like he is unable to feel things or be made to feel things. Another character that has the supernatural within him in a very positive way, though, is Fred. So 3 quotes that link to Fred. Fred is described as being all in a glow. He's described as his eyes sparkled, and he's also described as being ruddy and handsome. So all 3 of those quotes suggest that there is this supernatural sort of spirit within Fred, that he has like some very positive force within him. And obviously he's the one that never gives up on Scrooge. He's the one that helps Scrooge really to transform outside of the ghosts. Now, Dickens wrote this in Victorian England. Victorian England was a very Christian society. I've talked about that before in this channel. And part of your grade will come from how well you know the context, unless you have a mark scheme from one of the exam boards where context isn't included. So double check, but I think it might be every single exam board that sits A Christmas Carol has some context with it. So part of the context here would have been a Bible verse for Fred that said he was ruddy with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. So that's from 1 Samuel 16, verse 12, which is in the Old Testament of the Bible. And it's talking about the boy who becomes King David. And even if you're not religious and not Christian, most people have heard of King David because, like, David and Goliath, right? David had like a little slingshot. He's up against this gigantic, monstrous man who seems like he would wipe the floor with David. And yet he trusts in God. He uses the slingshot and manages to shoot a stone directly into Goliath's forehead, and it knocks him out and kills him. In some sense, I think that Fred is meant to link to that story of David and Goliath, because of the fact that Scrooge seems like such a monster and that he's never going to become a nicer man. But Fred fights him, obviously not physically, but he challenges him, stands up to Scrooge in a way that no one else does. And Scrooge does topple. Scrooge changes. The bad part of him dies and the good part of him grows, and he becomes a much better man for it. Either way, it's not a coincidence that the sparkling eyes, the fact he's ruddy and handsome and has a great appearance, clearly does link Fred somewhat to this Bible character, this Bible person, David. Okay, Now we're going to talk a lot about the ghosts. I think each page I set out is pretty much ghost of past, then present, and so on. But we start with Marley. So Ghost of Marley, the chain he drew was clasped around his middle. So straight away, that's a pretty odd image, the fact that there's this mysterious chain stuck around his middle that he can't get rid of. So obviously that links to the supernatural. Speak English, Adam. Cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses. So he's covered with all of these symbols of his misdeeds, of his greed. So again, that's linking the supernatural to symbolism and linking the idea of supernatural being a means of punishment and helping people understand the wrongs of what they've done. Unfortunately for Marley, it seems that it's too late, that he will wander around forever like this. He wore the chain he forged in life. He made it link by link. So this is very supernatural because he didn't literally make this chain, obviously, right? This is something that's been going on in another dimension or another world while he's been living. So again, that links to the idea that the supernatural is linked to our actions in our life. And then there's this very scary image of hell, which is obviously a supernatural place, whether it exists or not, of no rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse. So this idea that this place that Marley is in is deeply supernatural and it's a hellscape, it's very negative. Maybe people that look like this are there, because that would be hell for me, I'll tell you that. Creepy, creepy, creepy. Anyway, so that's Marley. So the supernatural surrounds Marley. The fact that Marley can even see and talk to Scrooge is also highly supernatural, of course. Then we have the ghost of Christmas past, not Christmas present. So it was a strange figure like a child, yet not so much like a child as like an old man. So this shows the supernatural as being incredibly mysterious. So you can't even get an accurate image. Like, so what is it? Is it a child? Is it a man? What is it? So you get this paradox and this confusing imagery of what the ghost looks like, and that adds to the mystery of the supernatural. The supernatural is also very vivid. So, you know, the tenderest bloom, the purest white, delicately formed, green holly, that should say holly, not holy, sorry. Pretty much every episode I make one typo at least, so I apologize for that. But yeah, green holly, and sprung a bright, clear jet of light. So the supernatural is also presented as very vivid. So the tenderest is a superlative. So nothing could be more tender than this bloom. The purest, nothing could be more pure than this white of the ghost. Delicately, obviously other things could be more delicate, but it's a very delicate, beautiful looking ghost in that sense. So it's quite overwhelming and vivid and difficult for a human being to look at. And again, linking to Christianity, there is a belief in Christianity that, you know, there are beings like angels and other spirits and stuff that if a human being saw it, it would be incredibly overwhelming to see. Green holly, this one isn't that supernatural, other than green holly historically has had some supernatural links to it. You could look those up if you'd like. And then a bright, clear jet of light. So again, we get all of this imagery of the supernatural, of the ghost, is very overwhelming and vivid. Why is that important? It's because obviously it's trying to make Scrooge listen and see and react to what he's seeing, and hopefully become overwhelmed by what he's seeing, so he will transform and become a better person. And then we've got the ghost of Christmas present. So this is the one that's most like Santa Claus. So he shed a few drops of water on them from it, and their good humor was restored directly. Now this is an interesting moment as well. So the ghost of Christmas present seems to have this like little flask thing, and if he pours water on people, then it actually makes them happier or heals them. So that could have some religious links, but obviously it's very supernatural because, you know, it's basically happy water, right? This water that if he sprinkles it on them, obviously they can't see him doing it either, but it makes them happy just to be able to have contact from this drop of water. So that's the supernatural. The way that he speaks is again very vivid and overwhelming. So he speaks with lots of exclamation marks, which suggests his voice is very loud. Come in. And then he sits as a jolly giant. So he's a big presence to see. So again, vivid, extreme, overwhelming, attention grabbing. He wore a green robe. So again, we've got green, and then holly, mistletoe, red berries, ivy. there's this long list of all of these plants that surround him. And again, that's very supernatural because it doesn't seem that all of these plants would be able to grow so richly and next to each other. So that it's this idea that the supernatural creates this abundance as well that is not of this earth. Finally, we have a very negative view of the supernatural. Now, the reason for that, it's still vivid, but it's negatively vivid, not positively vivid. And in this section, the reason for the supernatural to become very dark now and negative is because it's the final stage of Scrooge's transformation. So Scrooge is basically, this is his last chance, and Scrooge needs to be afraid, deeply, sincerely afraid of what will happen to him if he doesn't change. And if he doesn't manage to be afraid and actually change, then he is doomed to be the same as Jacob Marley. So shrouded in a deep black garment. So the color black is often negative connotations, darkness, evil, shrouded in the black garment as well. So these faces in some sense are shrouded. If you're shrouded, it means that there's a light sort of cloth or material above you or covering you. So this is a shrouding. So that's very scary if it's shrouded, right? So again, the supernatural being presented is very dark and mysterious and intimidating, all part of trying to transform Scrooge. So he waited in by houses overrun by grass and weeds. So this image of the supernatural is this idea that it's throwing Scrooge into the future so he can see what happens. And one of the ways that time is shown to have passed is because the weeds and the grass and everything has overgrown his house and eventually his graveyard and everything. So that's a supernatural image of like all the vegetation growing up. So it's the setting is quite supernatural here. And then slowly, gravely, silently, it approached. So imagine how creepy that would be. Like you've got this darkly shrouded figure showing you a future where you're all the people are dead, basically. Or sorry, where you're dead. You don't know that yet, but there's death. And there's people running around because of this death. And then the figure slowly, gravely, and silently approaches you. Very, very gothic. That's all of the quotes, actually. I thought I had one more page, being totally honest, but I didn't. So that actually went quicker than I thought, which is, I suppose, a good thing. So let me just quickly set up my final page here. So as usual, we're going to do a model paragraph on this. So I've just realized I'm not going to be able to do that. I need to be here now. So let me just put this up here. So the final final one is going to be, how is the supernatural used in the novella or novel? I always call it a novella. I'm sorry. It's a novel. Novellas are short. This is not that short. Why is it significant? So, and then I'm going to make the size of this writing way smaller because I'm going to write way too much for that size. So make it size 12. Why is it significant? Why is that coming up? Okay, don't know. The supernatural is used as a means of overwhelming and scaring both Scrooge and the reader of the novel. Much of the description of the supernatural is very positive. So we'll look at tenderest bloom, purest white. So tenderest bloom, purest white, which have connotations of something that is helpful and trying to improve Scrooge. Also, the superlatives, tenderest and purest, form a sense that nothing could be better or more vivid than the supernatural visitings, implying their power. Later on, however, this vivid positive imagery is replaced by vivid negative imagery in the Ghost of Christmas Future. Such as just realized there was another typo there. Garment. There we go. Shrouded in a deep black garment. Oh, wow, that's too big. Shrouded in a deep black garment. The use of the color black conveys fear, horror, and the unknown. This is further reinforced by the word shroud or the verb shrouded, since this is a loose covering that would mean the ghost was only a vague outline. The intensity of the supernatural is overall a good thing, though. Scrooge does repent of his sins and change his ways. As the reader, we may feel compelled to look at some of the bad in ourselves too. This is significant as Dickens would have seen a lot of evil and mistreatment of people in the in Victorian England, and his work serves as a warning, a vivid warning, that there may be more to this life than simply what we do here. Okay, need to turn this down one more. There we go. So it's quite a long paragraph. Can't do word count on here, annoyingly, but I would guess it's about 250, even 300 words. So there's a model paragraph for you on the supernatural. So it's used as an overwhelming thing, a scary thing, a positive thing. Basically, the supernatural takes us on a very vivid journey. That's the way I want you to think about it. The biggest things it does is it helps Scrooge to become the man he needs to become. So ultimately, the vivid nature of the supernatural is a positive thing, even when it's scary and overwhelming like it is at the end with the Ghost of Christmas Future. But ultimately, it serves its purpose and it does manage to make Scrooge a better man. I hope that was helpful. I don't have anything else really to say on the supernatural. Lots of quotes, lots of ideas. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them down below. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for joining. Take care.